Hello and welcome to another edition of the MYPATH podcast. I'm Lee, your host. I am buzzing, absolutely chuffed to introduce Dave today. David Cockroft from Jacobs. How are you, Dave?
I'm good, thank you, Frank.
Good, thank you for coming on.
No problem.
Are you well?
I'm very well, yes. Thank you.
Good. Dave, I know we spoke off camera and I know we know each other quite well off camera and we've been talking about kind of our objectives with this podcast. We're really keen on kind of exploring and giving students, I suppose, an opportunity to understand, you know, how people get from A to B with their careers, and actually they're not always linear. You know, we're all on our own unique journey, and I know you're about to share that with us in a moment. So what I'd like to do, Dave, if okay with you, kind of just go back to the start of your journey, talk about your education, and start moving into kind of what job opportunities you've had and how you've then ended up at Jacobs. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Brilliant. So Dave, I know we know each other. And I know you're Leicester City, just like myself. Talk to me a little bit about your education in terms of, let's start with secondary school. So where did you go? What sort of grades did we get, if you're happy to share?
Yeah, so I went to Beaumont Leys, where all the best go. Quite a quiet, shy student, kind of worked hard, but didn't really get any amazing grades. I think it was kind of sort of that C range, but pretty much passed all of the exams I sat.
So the C grade now would be your 4s and 5s-ish for our listeners.
Yes.
Yep,
That
okay.
makes you feel old, doesn't it? Yeah, so kind of at that level. I think, I know we spoke about as well, we had a sixth form at Beaumont Leys, and that kind of ended on the year that I would have moved into that to like sit A-levels and things.
Yeah.
So I think looking back, that was probably going to be my plan to stay on for another couple of years, get some advice from teachers that knew you over that time to maybe guide you on what's the best approach to do and what that path might look like.
And what sort of subjects would you have taken if that was an option?
I think I'd have probably taken the subjects that I actually went on to take elsewhere.
Right, okay.
So I went on to Leicester College and started A-levels. So the A-levels that I took were English language, sport, and biology. And the reason I took those three was because I always felt like I was going to go down a line of it's going to be something sport related.
Yeah.
I enjoy writing. I've done a bit of writing as well on the side during my career, like sports writing. So I thought that could be an avenue. But then also physiotherapy, maybe with the biology link to that could be another route. And my mum and dad kind of tried to push that as well, so they looked at routes with physio courses. So I remember seeing brochures for Nottingham Uni and things like that. So I thought that's probably the way I'd go. But when I kind of got into the A-levels, I don't know if it was the environment I was in or maybe I just had enough of the studies, I'm not sure. It didn't really. I did the AS levels, I passed those first years, but I wanted to change after that, so I kind of have dropped out of that and looked at another avenue. So I then went into another course at Leicester College, but it was like a sort of a PT related course. So I suppose more of a sports science kind of study. But again, a few months into that, didn't really, I don't know, something never really clicked for me. So I dropped out of that, and then I was at a point where I wanted to work, I wanted to learn something. I don't know if I was a bit impatient and I just wanted a skill set. So I just dropped out and started then looking for work and what jobs are out there that involve basically a trainee job. Yeah. So I used to get the Mercury then every Wednesday, go through those adverts.
So just for the audience, the Mercury is the local paper, and this would have been, I'm not going to give away your age, Dave, but it's probably 25 years ago maybe. And you would look every Wednesday, that's what people did, and there was the vacancies in the Leicester Mercury, weren't they? Whereas now it would be online, I suppose. So you were diving into the Mercury, and what did you find?
Yeah, and I'd just literally be ringing anything that had trainee in the title. Yeah. And these would range from all sorts. So I was thinking maybe I'd go down like a trade route, because I was also looking into that, like apprenticeships in terms of like, I don't know, a painter, a decorator, or edit, something like that, electrician. Is there any of those opportunities available? But yeah, literally ringing anything that was a trainee related job, and got a call for a trainee technician role at a company called Pick Everard in Leicester on Charles Street.
And what did they do?
So it's a multidiscipline company, so civil engineering, structural engineering, architects, QA, big range. and they had a post for a trainee technician. So I rocked up there for an interview, and I just remember sitting in reception, looking at the big pick over consulting engineers, architects, and it was a bit like, I've applied for a lot of trainee jobs. Like,
here's this for me.
This one, mine. So I had a chat with the boss there, not really sure what the job was going to entail, and then he started showing me around and took me to the company print room. So walked into this room, was just a massive printer plotter, a couple of computers, like report binders, paper everywhere, things like that. And the current trainee guy in there was a guy I'd played football with.
Okay.
And I still think the only reason I got that job was he probably got a good word in for me. But I think that's a really good point though as well, and something that I'll come back to as we talk, because I think the biggest thing with me throughout my career has been that network, whether it's personal or professionally, but building that network and getting good connections, because I really feel they've opened up doors for me and given me really good opportunities.
So just going back a couple of steps, so you had a reasonable set of GCSEs, but the kind of A level or the level 3 personal training type route didn't really materialise. So you've took a step back and gone, right, I'll try and learn something, I'll try and become a master of something, and you've kind of fell into this particular role, didn't really have specific qualifications relevant to the role, but you've been able to impress in an interview with skills that I suppose we develop outside the classroom as well, being able to talk to people, communicate, listen, etc. But also your network has been really important, and that's quite crucial, isn't it? When we think about, I suppose, in this day and age, I think a lot of, not necessarily our audience, but a lot of the next generation are so used to being on tablets, phones, that we sometimes worry that we're probably not developing that communication as much as we should be. So where do you stand with that in terms of next generation? What do you look for when you're thinking about recruiting? Are you really looking at how well, students can communicate with people?
Yeah, massively. I think what I do is very techy, very data orientated. I think that's one of the things that I kind of clicked with the work that I do, is because it's very analytical.
Okay.
And you're crunching numbers, looking at graphs and things, and that's how I'm wired. I like that. Yeah. And the kids coming through, they've got that skill set. They're technically sound. Yeah. Their understanding's good. But what I look out for is that communication of, like, can you build a bit of a rapport with someone? Yeah. Can you find some common ground? And I find that when you're interviewing people, like, how they come across, and do they try and take it a bit more personal, rather than just focusing on the sort of the questions and being a bit more
That's
technical.
interesting, and we'll dive back into that towards the end of this session. Really interesting. So this first job then, so you've been given your first opportunity, structural engineering, civil engineering, architecture. What did you have to do? What were you doing as a 17, 18-year-old? What was your day-to-day job like?
So I was 18, I think, when I joined there. But it was brilliant, because it was a perfect place, I think, to start. Both, like, I think more as well, like personally and socially as well, because there was a lot of guys there that were similar age to me, starting in various parts of the company. I met my wife there, so she was working in one of the areas. And a lot of really good friends that I'm still in touch with that I met there. So you had that element of it, which made it a much more comfortable place to go to work and enjoyable. But also, my day-to-day was literally be in that print room, and it was a really good place to be, because everybody across that company would come in at some point of the day. Yeah. So they'd be there sending their engineering drawings to print, architectural drawings would come down. They'd pop in with a report that they needed printing or binding, faxing. People getting fax requests. There was random, but I was responsible for the upkeep of that room and all the sort of printers across the office.
So it was almost a real central hub in the office
really
space.
But it was that's essentially it, like the stocking and the upkeep of that room and everything else in the company. But the main thing was that point of contact with everybody. So I would speak to people from all walks of life, various backgrounds, ages, and just have a general chat a lot of the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
and you'd understand. I mean, you'd get to know them personally, but it was like you'd learn about what they're doing
Yeah,
their day
yeah.
to day. So,
And I'm guessing they'd be asking you questions about where you wanted to go.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
And they'd be at various points of their career and their experience. If they're having a bad experience on a project or
Yeah,
something's
yeah.
going well, they'd vent at you or
Yeah,
talk about it, which was
Yeah.
invaluable, really.
Yeah.
That then it kind of opened doors of getting involved with certain parts of that business. So I'd go on site then, and I remember going out and doing water pressure testing
Okay.
with one of the engineers
Yeah, yeah.
on the clean water networks, or go into a development site, a housing site that's being built that they were working on. So you'd see different aspects
Yeah, yeah.
of it, and the company were really supportive because they'd then pushed me down the line of getting into education. So I went down that road again, sort of day release
Okay.
at college.
And what was that? Was it called an apprenticeship, or was it like you're working for us, but we're going to get you qualified in this? Just a bit of like professional development.
Yeah, it wasn't an apprenticeship, but it wasn't kind of tagged as that. It was like you're a technician, and you've kind of we'll open this up. So it's like, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
Like, you can kind of carve
Wow.
your path out.
So they were really investing in you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they were good with that. Like a lot of the guys I work with, say they were at various areas of the business, but they were supported with whatever they wanted to do, whether that be a day release course, a night class, doing
Yeah.
something else to learn another skill, but to get the experience that you needed on the job. And I probably did about 2 years in that print room environment and trying various other things out
Yeah.
before I landed in an actual team in the office. So I moved out and joined what we'll call it's the hydraulic modelling team, it was called, which is a part of the civil engineering
Okay.
consultants. Yeah.
And with that in mind, what was your role when you moved into that position?
So that role was a technician. I kind of moved up from a trainee technician to what they called a GIS technician. So this is where it was like people come in our teams with geography backgrounds and using sort of mapping software, geographical mapping software. So there was a lot of that developing plans. So
Yeah.
the work I do is solely related around sewer networks and how they operate. So rather than actually using the software to do what I've been doing ever since, it's more that background assessment, doing the plans that go into reports. There might be a bit of data analysis that goes into that, but it was sort of that background work that helps get the stuff into the modelling software, which
Right.
the more senior guys would use.
And was that your position for quite some time? How long did you do that for?
Yeah, I developed in that role probably over a 3-year spell. So I'd start doing very mundane tasks. So like a good example is using the geographical software that we used is digitising subcatchments. So in a catchment, say like where we are now in this village of Leicester, you draw around houses and you'd say where they contribute to a part of the sewer.
Right, okay.
So there'd literally be polygons all around that catchment and they drain into certain parts, and those represent domestic use, like population factors and things like that. And you'd go to sleep and you'd just see polygons because you'd be looking at those all day.
Yeah.
So it was very like you'd have mundane tasks like that, but then they'd introduce you to site work as well.
Yeah.
So the work we do now is a lot about sort of model maintenance. So we effectively have hydraulic models like sewer networks on a computer software, and that has got to essentially be representative of what's happening in reality.
Right,
so that you can
okay.
use it as
Wow.
a bit of a tool. So if it's not representative, you go out and do surveys to understand why and build that confidence. So you'd lift manhole covers to get invert levels,
Right.
dimensions. You'd go out to pumping stations, do drop tests to understand what the discharge rate is doing, things like that. So I'd start to see that. Then I'd go out and you wouldn't be doing surveys. You'd go out and supervise a contractor. But again, it was another good footing to meet those contractors. It's contractors that you'd met then that even some of them are still around, like doing the same job now, and you start building those relationships.
So a real
as
network there.
Yeah, and also meeting the guys that work for Severn Trent who are out on the ground and getting their input. So they're seeing these problems, they're getting called out to issues each and every day. and you'd understand what their take. So you get different perspectives on what you're working on essentially.
So how long were you in this net position?
I reckon I did about 3 years in that position, and then had a bit of another switch, and it was probably a bit short-sighted, I think, career-wise for me. I think my mate who I was working with rang me up. He was at another company.
Yeah.
There's a role going here.
Yeah.
It was a CAD engineer, so like a drawing, like a drafts, computerized drafting system, like to do engineering drawings and whatnot. And I was doing a class at night. I was doing a night school class on that just to learn the software. So it was like, there's a role here for a CAD technician. It's more money than what you're on. Are you interested? Like, it's a good place to work.
Yeah.
It's kind of sold it. I was like, okay, I'll give that a go. So I went over there and joined a highways team then. So I've moved from sort of water into highways. And went in there as a CAD technician, but it was good to, again, work in a new area and work with new people, but it was became quite a mundane job. I think it was more of you do your plans, there's markups, that needs changing, change that, reprint. It was quite repetitive in that sense. So yeah, I don't know why I thought that was a route that I wanted to take. Yeah. And really why I even went to the school to do the course.
But I think sometimes it's okay, isn't it, to make those mistakes, or sometimes we need to kind of experience different roles to understand that role might not be for you,
Yeah. But I think it was interesting because I always worked hard. Like, I was one of those, I like to get my head down and do the work. And I think that's another thing kind of gave me opportunities as well, because even in that role, just doing what I was doing, I then got a chance to start using sort of design software, so highway design, and working to design criteria. And I was getting chances to use that, and I was like starting to move up in, like, away from the kind of drawing into that kind of role. But I don't know, I mean, things happened there with, it was the recession as well that was going on at the time. Our main job got shelved by the government, and work was kind of drying up on that front for us. So I'd always kept in good touch with the guy that I was working with in the modelling team at Pix, and kind of touch base there to see if there was anything going on. They were busy. I got experience in that as well. I was moving up from that sort of trainee role into doing the actual modelling. Like, I had experience in doing that, which is why I felt it was a bit short-sighted for me to kind of move away from it, because I was progressing. But young followed the money a little bit. So he said, yeah, there's a job. So I went back for interview there, and I actually went back.
So you went back home?
Went back home, homecoming. So I probably did about 3 years at the firm where I was in the highways team at the company, and then switched back and went back to Pix and went back into that modelling team, but not as a technician, but as someone who could kind of hit the ground running.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay at Pix for before you moved on to Jacobs?
No, so I was at Pix for like 5 years.
Right.
From sort of print room to that sort of technician in that modelling team. Then I moved to a company called White and Green, which was where the highway work was and the CAD work. I was there for probably about 3 years.
Okay.
There. And then back to Pix, where I probably had another 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. And then you moved on to your current position?
No. I went to another company.
Okay.
I was at Pix for like 3 or 4 years there. Went to Pell Frischmann, but in the same line of work. Then,
right.
So
okay.
Hydraulic modelling. So I'd moved into, like, from a technician at Pix to a modeller, kind of had that blip where I'd not done that, and then moved back in as a modeller.
Yeah.
And kind of progressed in there, and then went to Pell's as a senior modeller.
Right.
Did about 3 years there, and then I've moved since. Started at Jacobs 9 years ago nearly now as a senior modeller. And
right.
Since
okay.
I progressed to principal modeller and now associate director.
Wow.
So yeah, quite a But those 3 companies, Jacobs, Pell's, Pix, in what I do is all relevant.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've been on a bit of a journey there that's zigzagged, and I think this is something that, and that's that's key to our conversation today. That's what we want our audience to kind of hear, that, you know, when you're 16, 17, 18, 19, you know, we might have our peers around us that are saying, yeah, I know what I want to do. That's exactly where I want to go in my career. But sometimes a lot of us don't know, and that is okay. And I think sometimes if you take a bit of time to find your direction, eventually the stars tend to align. And it sounds like, you know, you've served a number of different roles, but it's got you into a position where you've actually been able to excel really well, with lots of opportunities, to the point where did you say you're a director now?
Yeah, job title is associate director.
So what does that actually mean? What's an associate director at Jacobs do?
Yeah, so I think the idea of my role now is to kind of move away from that day-to-day technical side of thing, which this is another challenge. You're always learning, you're always developing and adapting, because I like the day-to-day technical aspects of things. But it's now in a role where I'm kind of leading a number of projects. So I'm responsible for like the technical delivery of those to our clients, and managing a team, and being responsible that they've got enough work. So that resource element as well, and that look ahead. So is the team busy? What they're working on? Are they working to the deadlines that we're set? And also, what's the look ahead? What's the future work? So it's that sort of client interaction side as well, and trying to get that look ahead of work and getting that booked in.
And you mentioned client interaction, and we spoke a bit at the start of the pod about the importance of being able to communicate when you're in the print room. And actually, those skills there, you're still utilising them now right at the top of the chain, aren't you? You know, you're having to continue to kind of build rapport with clients.
Massively, yeah. I think that's been really important, getting those good relationships in. And I know we spoke before, like when I joined Jacobs, say like 9 years ago, I'd worked at Pell's previously, and we'd worked on A7 Trent job. And the client there, we'd done a really good job with him, built a really good relationship with him as well. We had a good trust and understanding there. And yeah, that job went really well. And then coming into Jacobs, I think I didn't realise at the time, but he was actually their client. And there were certain projects hadn't gone the best, and there was maybe the relationship wasn't too good there. But on coming into the company, he's walked in then to me, and I was like, oh, okay. And then it put us on a good foot as well. And it's okay, I know Dave, I've worked with him before. We did a good job on this particular project. And then it's just that good starting point. So we could able to build that from there. And I knew what he liked and how to work with him. So that really helped.
Sounds good, Dave. Sounds like successful relationships were being built. What type of challenges have you faced in your career? What sort of things have kind of got in your way? What sort of things have you had to overcome?
I think with me, it's probably been myself, in terms of like, I've not got that academic background that everybody else around me has.
Okay.
And I think I've always kind of thought, and this is probably a reason why I kind of did that sidestep into going into CAD, doing that sort of draft work, because I thought, well, the engineers that I'm looking at and I was working with and working up to that level at Pix, doing the modelling work before, I was like, well, I've not got the academic background that they have. It's like, is that something I'm going to be able to...
imposter syndrome type thing.
Yeah, I think definitely that.
Just like how I feel when I'm sat here hosting a podcast.
You're very good at it, though. You're a natural. But yeah, I think probably that, like not thinking that you can get to those levels because that's going to be a blocker. But really, I think what I've learned on jobs, like work experience and working with people, I've learned that craft, and I understand it, and I can, and a good skill I think I've got is I can communicate that to clients, because I say it's very techie what we do, and you've got to be able to sift away from that.
Break it down into layman's.
And I think that's what I've been good at, and I think I've not really realised that I could get to those levels.
So almost a barrier was you doubting yourself because of a lack of academic acumen, or perhaps qualifications that are higher than level 4, moving into your level 5, 6s, 7s.
Definitely. And it's not like I've not had the opportunity to do it as well, because the companies have, they gave me opportunities to do. I did like an ONC and a HNC at Pix, and I did that night class doing CAD as well. But I feel like I didn't really get a lot out of those
You like the doing. You like learning.
Yeah. And
on the job.
Never seen those skills learn or anything that I took from those into the work, whereas everything I was doing on the job, I could see progress.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
understanding grew. So
And everyone's different, right? You know, university's not for everyone, is it? You know?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's, you know, it's a good message again, because I think, you know, for a long period of time without getting into politics, you know, I think people were being pushed towards university, weren't they? You know, and whereas perhaps they might not have been completely suitable, and maybe took degrees that they wouldn't have taken if there wasn't a push. And you know, actually, it's about what's right for the individual. And you know, we talk about that a lot at MYPATH. You know, we're impartial. You know, when we're guiding students, it's about them selecting their future, them thinking in depth about their future, not being told what to go and do, you know, because we're all different. And we know our own strengths, don't you? We know our own areas for development. And I think it's important that whilst we always take pearls of wisdom from people, which we'll get to in a moment, you know, we need to find our own way too. You know, we're all on our own unique journey. So with pearls of wisdom in mind, Dave, see that seamless transition. We've spoke a bit about kind of communication. Talk to me a bit about transferable skills. So I know you interview now, you know, you're in a very senior position. What sort of skills, you know, I suppose alongside communication, what sort of skills are we looking for when you're in the process of recruiting or shortlisting?
Yeah, I mean, I know I keep banging on about it as well, but it's like that personable level. I like that. Like somebody that can come in and be at ease and be confident and find a bit of middle ground. That's always a skill I look out for. But I suppose in what we do, our jobs are very, like, they can be quite repetitive.
Yep.
So you're always trying to think of innovation. Like, how can we make this task quicker?
So like a lot of problem solving.
It is, yeah. Essentially, I mean, that is the job. But it's like there'll be tasks that we do that we always trying to speed up. Like, because the thing with modelling, it is very time consuming, and it can be a bit of a blocker on projects. Like it takes a long time to get from A to B and get that answer. So it's trying to find how we speed that up. And I think it's now with AI and everything, that's all becoming more prevalent with what we do. And the guys coming from uni have got that background in scripting and things like that. And that I always look out for that, because if they can make a task and split tasks down, that's obviously the goal. But it's also, and it's difficult as well. I always feel a bit harsh when I ask them in the interviews, because they've not got experience in doing the day to day, because it's quite niche what we do. But it's like, from your experience of doing, like, they've done some scripting on their CV. It's like, how do you think you could transfer that into what we do? And it's trying to pick bits out into that. It is difficult, but it's a massive skill.
And that's an interesting point. You know, about like experience. I mean, a lot of students will talk to me about that. Like, how can I get experience if I'm not old enough to get experience, or how can I get experience in a particular job if I've not got the qualifications to do it? Do you look for like volunteer type work experience and things like that? How can, if we've got some aspiring engineers listening, how can they get experience alongside, say, their academic qualifications to impress in an interview? What could they do? Or is there a lot of health and safety issues based on the line of work?
I think using the software as well, like there's trials you can get. So,
right.
And this has come across in a few interviews we had recently as well, where they've took the time, in their own time, to download that, to try and understand it more.
Yeah.
So it's like that going that extra mile.
Yeah.
And just showing that keenness. They understand what you're using and what they need to use to be in that team. And it's like, well, I'm trying to do what I can with the limited resources I've got available and the limited experience. But that's a real seller. And just showing that keenness.
Dave, thank you for that really useful point. Dave, talk to me about the future of engineering, because in my line of work, when I'm giving advice to students, I can access various bits of information, and I'm reading that, you know, I suppose the STEM sector over like a 10-15 year period it's looking like it's going to grow over 40% in terms of size. What's the future looking like in terms of engineering, or your specific aspect of engineering?
So my specific industry is really exciting times, actually. I know I think when I meet you and I meet people, I'll always say I'm a civil engineer.
Yeah.
And I think we're friends with him. I'm a bit like Chandler Bing. Like no one knows exactly what I do. So because my specific job is a hydraulic modeler.
Right.
So it's wastewater networks, and this is relevant now to what's going on in the industry because of the mainstream media reporting on overflows, discharges into the watercourse.
Right.
And these pollution risks, and celebrities have jumped on it. And
right. Okay.
it's just been blown out of
Yeah.
proportion. Exaggerated as you'd expect.
Yeah.
But brilliant for us because it's it's generated new legislation. It's generated massive investment. And modelling's at the front of that now because in order to understand why an overflow is spilling so much, you need to have a model to run that.
Right.
And understand what those mechanisms are, what's causing that, and also if that model's representative of what's happening in reality, you've then got that design tool to use in order to fix that. And we use them for like flooding as well. If someone's house is flooding, we can understand, we can run simulations, so we obtain rainfall data and we can test that.
And when you say simulations, is that all on computer, or do you have like models in big, I don't know, warehouses?
It's all computerized.
Right.
So we'll obtain data. So we'll install. There'll be monitors in the ground, like in-seat systems. They'll be on there to pick up your depth and velocity readings.
So I know we spoke briefly about this, but I appreciate you don't do much work with schools in your line of work at the moment. One of the benchmarks that schools have to fulfil is linking curriculum to careers. So I think you mentioned geography earlier. So kind of like almost pre-degree level, what sort of kind of subjects are relevant in your line of work?
It's quite varied, and it's good because I think in what I do, nobody's got like the same background.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of diversity.
There's a lot of variation, which is really positive. And geography tends to be a big one. So
is that geography like at A level, or are you getting like geography graduates?
Graduates.
Oh wow. Yeah. Okay.
It tends to be like geography grads, mathematics, physics.
Yeah.
So that kind of bag, but geography obviously with the environmental impact. And it's a really exciting time to be part of the industry as well because you're trying to resolve those environmental issues that are in the spotlight.
So it's really impactful.
Oh yeah, it's very rewarding as well, I think, and because I think what I struggled with in the past was you'd work on these jobs, and like I say, it's time consuming. So we'd have monitors in the ground. You'd have to wait for a certain amount of rainfall in order to capture enough data.
Yeah.
Then when you finally got that data, it goes into your model. You start running it. You change it to match the graphs to what's observed, and then you're essentially verified. Of course, you've got a verified model and that tool to use. And then you'd be like, well, where's that going now? There'll be a project. Could be, say, like a flooding project. We can build some storage here to resolve that. But it takes such a long time to see that end goal.
Yeah.
Whereas now, that it's so much that it needs to be accelerated because the problem is in the spotlight. And
so a potentially exciting time for aspiring engineers to enter the industry with lots of opportunities potentially come in.
Lots of opportunities. And that's another point as well, because when you first, I mean, my journey as well, you start off as a technician or a grad coming in, and you're doing those sort of mundane plans and the tests. It's a bit more. It was a much more slower process into using the software and running things and testing things. We've got grads now that are coming in a year's experience, and they're looking at doing optioneering work. Like they're doing the verification. Because we need the need is there, so they're being accelerated.
So lots of opportunities, but actually you can really be fast tracked in this as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, so an exciting time to enter if we have aspiring engineers.
100%. Yeah.
Good. Dave, I'm going to start coming towards the end now in terms of this pod, because I appreciate you're a busy man and I know you've got some meetings coming up. If you could give me 3 top tips for our listeners in terms of kind of preparing them for the working world, preparing them for interviews, preparing them for making decisions about their careers. I'm sorry to put you on the spot here. 3 quick tips for the next generation.
It's hard, isn't it? Because I think the guys that are coming through to me, education-wise, spot on, brilliant. It's how they stand out. And I think being personable is massive.
Yeah.
Like trying to stand out. I don't know. It's difficult on a CV, but when you've got that interview to try.
So some sort of uniqueness on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that. Yeah, to make it a bit more of a.
And would you even look on a CV or an application at like their hobbies? Outside of, because I think there's such a focus, isn't there, on academic qualifications. Would you look at other aspects of their personality in an application?
I think it's nice to see, yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, it makes it more personal when you're looking at it, you're getting a picture of who the person is, as opposed to, you've got all these qualifications. That's undeniable. They're well educated. What is going to make you stand out?
Yeah.
And that's always good. And I think as well that sort of keenness, like going that extra mile.
Yeah.
That's going to be a bit more specific to your role. Like, are you looking at other things outside to try and make yourself stand out for this position? Like, what are you doing that others might not be?
Really interesting. I think we've got about 2 or 3 tips there, so we can leave it there. So Dave, just coming right back round now, looping this back round. So our objective today was to talk about kind of careers not always being linear. Is it fair to say that your career hasn't been linear?
Yeah, 100%. It's gone all over the place.
Yeah, but it's okay, right? And you've actually managed to find your way, and you are hugely successful in what you do. Dave, thank you again so much for coming in. I really enjoyed it. Could you just remind me as well where Jacobs are based, if our listeners wanted to check them out?
Well, it's a global company, a US company, we're all over the world. It's probably another good point. You get like there's international opportunities as well there. But I'm based out of the Birmingham office.
Okay, so Birmingham based here, but international. And I'm guessing if our listeners wanted to check you guys out, they could just jump online and find you.
Yeah, of course.
Brilliant. Dave, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you,
I'll let you get back to your office. Thank you for listening, guys. Please do check us out on a regular basis at MyPath. We are now at edition number 7 or 8, so please do check out those pods. Thank you. See you soon.